Well, let me tell you something, brother.
Snort, snort, snort,
Hogan. Drip.
snort, snort.
I got the drip. Go.
Last night, I played Starfield for the first time in weeks, and I focused solely on the story, and the story was getting interesting. Now, I don't know if the story will continue to ramp up and get more and more interesting the further into the game we get, because now we're about 40 hours in. But it definitely was interesting last night. A whole new, like, enemy was introduced to the game that I wasn't expecting at this point. I wasn't expecting new enemies and things to be introduced, and they are.
To be fair, he might not know this because he tries to avoid spoilers or whatever, but I would imagine that Kat would have told him where he's at in the story. Based on just counting how many main story missions there are, he's about halfway through this story, so I don't know why he would be surprised that they're still introducing new enemies and things.
Which is kind of neat. And now there's a new ongoing plot line and mystery that's happening.
I don't get why he would even bother being vague about what's going on in the story at all. I don't imagine that anybody would actually watch his pre-stream if they didn't already watch his gameplay, and if they care enough about the gameplay to not want to be spoiled, they probably either played it themselves already or are currently watching your playthrough and know what's going on. So I don't know who he's like being vague for. It doesn't benefit anybody except make him sound like he's talking about nonsense. Because when he says there's a new plot line, there's a new mystery, there's a new enemy, but he doesn't actually give any detail on what it is, it just sounds like he doesn't understand what's going on in the game and he's just kind of faking it till he makes it.
Now, oh, that's interesting. So I'm actually eager to play more Starfield on Wednesday night and see where this plot goes. I'm just not too confident that it's going to go somewhere satisfactory by the end of the game. But so far, that was a really cool twist and a new, plot line introduced last night, and I actually really enjoyed it.
Hey guys, just an FYI, if you want people to tune into something that you're gonna do, I wouldn't recommend that you just tell them that it's gonna end unsatisfactory. Now, obviously, don't lie about things and set their expectations where they need to be set, but don't tell them that it's just gonna be bad. That doesn't make any sense to me, and definitely not how you get people to show up.
I ended my stream in a bad place because, basically, there's a situation in the game where someone's out to get you, and you have to escape. But you don't know at first that this enemy, if you can believe it, is invincible. You think, oh, maybe I can fight them. So you start pulling out weapons and shooting, and what ends up happening is you're in the middle of a city when you're doing this, so there's collateral damage that's unavoidable. It's just going to happen. There's nothing you can do about it. You don't know you're supposed to be running and escaping. You think maybe you can fight this thing. So
I gotta stop him and interject right here, because I played the game and I played this exact part, and I thought it was made very clear that you were not going to be able to beat him, because every time you get close to beating him, there's like another one that spawns in and they just keep coming, so eventually you do just have to run. It was made very clear. But DSP said that it's in a crowded city, which it is, but that the collateral damage was unavoidable. I played that part and I shot at him for a little bit. I didn't have any collateral damage problems at all. And if you didn't watch it just like I hadn't, I'd recommend that you go watch it, because this absolute buffoon is in this crowded area and he just starts letting off grenade launcher rounds like into the crowd to try and kill this person. He is just setting off explosives. Yes, collateral damage is unavoidable if you do it like that. Like, yeah, you may have been defending yourself nuking the planet from orbit, but everybody's still gonna be upset that you nuked an entire planet from orbit. You don't just get a write-off because you were defending yourself from one person. And mind you, these people were also running away from this guy, so they were all kind of on the same team and they were doing the same thing. And DSP is just letting grenades off into the crowd.
I unload into the enemy, and after about, 5 minutes of trying to fight it, I realized there's no way to kill this thing. Like, I've been trying the whole time. It's not going to die. It's just going to keep following me, so I guess I just got to escape. So I escape, and then come to find out, like, the entirety of the galaxy hates me. Oh, well, because you unloaded in the middle of that city, there was collateral damage. Now there's a million bounties on your head and everyone wants you dead. And I'm like, now wait a minute.
Yeah, I don't know why you're surprised. If you take a step back and look at your actions, you got into a shootout in a crowded city with another person and you let off grenades. And these explosions actually wound up hitting people. Obviously, the best choice would have been to not hit the unrelated NPCs who were also running for their lives.
Let's think about this for a second, okay? This is a actual main story beat, a main story plot line in the game, that this segment happens. It's scripted that this happens, that you're hunted and something's coming after you and you have to escape. But at first you don't know you have to escape. So of course the first thing you're going to think about is, let me try to fight and see if I can, defend myself.
Yes, that's entirely allowed. You're allowed to shoot at the guy as much as you want before you realize that it's not working and that you do in fact need to run. Again, that's fair. I totally 100% expect that to happen.
Everyone's going to do this. So why not, during this portion of the game, have a special element where you don't get bounties for fighting the thing because you're fighting it in a city? I just want you to think about how stupid that is.
Oh, but I'm too busy thinking about how stupid the thing that you said is. Because again, you're leaving out the part where you're not getting a bounty just because you're fighting the enemy. You're getting a bounty because you're hitting unrelated civilians.
They knew this was a major part of the plot. They knew that most people would probably try to at least once fight back. And instead of saying, okay, let's suspend this element. This isn't someone outright committing a crime in the city. This is someone trying to defend themselves because there's something after them. And let's just make it so that this part of the game is fun. It's fast-paced. You try to fight it, you fail, then you run on to the next part of the story.
I have a couple of different things to say here. The first one being, if you, again, take a step back and look at the situation in the game. Two groups of people emerge from underneath the city and start a massive shootout in a busy, populated area of the city. In the spur of the moment, nobody's going to know who the good and bad guy is. Nobody's going to know why you're even shooting. But what they would probably remember and take note of is that one of the groups of people emerging from underneath the city that was involved in the shootout started exploding civilians. Because just like real life, regardless of whether you're in the right or the wrong, if you just start clapping people that are completely unrelated, there has to be consequences. The second thing is that DSP is always the first person to point out when a game doesn't hold true to its own mechanics. The second that they aren't consistent on a mechanic and just let something slip by the wayside so that you can have more fun, he immediately points it out and wants to dog on the game. I can hear him now. As soon as he made it to the ship and he blew up all those civilians and they literally died, he'd get into space, have the conversation, and then be like, oh, so I guess I'm not going to be punished for all those civilians I killed. Well, that was pretty stupid. The game didn't even care. They just let me gun all those people down. I mean, there's just no winning with this guy. He just wouldn't have been happy any way they did it, so I don't know why we're even wasting our time talking about it. But I guess that's the name of the game on the DSP level 1 pre-stream. Waste as much time as possible to get the maximum amount of money you can for no gameplay.
No, that was too hard for Bethesda. That would actually have taken some effort to kind of like code that into the game. So instead, still have all the bounties and all the systems in place as if this story element isn't happening, ignoring it, right? Like, oh, someone's defending themselves from something trying to kill them. You know, oh, they committed heinous crimes. What are you talking about? This thing was killing everything.
Yes, this thing was killing everything, but so were you. You don't get to nuke the entire city because Jaha wanted to fight you in the parking lot. You don't just get a free pass for that.
So what are you talking, like, what the fuck? It's just really badly done, in my opinion. Just like a lot of parts of this game. It feels like they laid the groundwork for something good, but they only did like the very base level work, and they never bothered to go anything past that base level of understanding of what the game should have been. Just suspend the fucking bounty system for 5 minutes during the segment. Then you could play through it and then reinstate it after the segment's over. Is that so hard?
Is it really that difficult to not shoot a grenade launcher into a crowd of people? I mean, you have an entire arsenal in your inventory of weapons that you could have chosen from, and you decided to pick the one that was going to do the maximum amount of collateral damage in this tightly packed urban area? I mean, honestly, it's concerning to me that you didn't even once think about the amount of damage that you were going to do to people on the side. Because I know when I played, my first thought when I was doing that section was make sure not to hit any of these people that are running by because they're not involved in this. But DSP got into the exchange and instantly started exploding the entire city.
Like, really, is that so fucking hard? It's like game programming 101. I could have easily told you, as a game director, I could have told you, do that. This makes sense. It makes the game fun. But I guess that's not what they were going for. Fun? Oh, they don't want that in Starfield.
What the hell does DSP know about game programming 101? Has he ever programmed anything in his entire life? Not only is this guy incapable of editing his own content or setting up his stream without being handheld, this guy can't even do a basic Google search without being handheld. So what the hell does he know about how simple it is to program? Oh, but as a game director, he could have told him. DSP would make for the worst game director. Every single game that he finds fun and enjoyable just lets him win and have a power fantasy, or our Candy Crush style mobile games with JPEGs of sweaty dudes in them. And I don't know why he is so concerned about how fun a game is, because he doesn't play games for fun. He plays games for his business. They go on a conveyor belt, he completes them, and then he gets them off of the conveyor belt and he never looks at them again. He doesn't enjoy these games. He hasn't enjoyed games in ages.
So it actually is pretty stupid in my opinion. So what's gonna end up happening probably is I'm probably going to have to reload the game. Luckily, I did a hard save like right before that story element had happened.
So we got this whole rage segment about how the game is designed poorly and he could have done it better than them. But at the end of the day, none of it even mattered because he could just reload the game. He really got upset and frustrated about something that he could actually just revert. I don't know why it was so hard for him to just say, yeah, last time I played, I kind of messed everything up. So I'm just going to revert back and you're going to have to watch like 10 minutes of footage that you've pretty much already seen. I apologize. But instead we get an entire segment on his pre-stream about how bad Starfield is because he decided to fire into a crowd of people. What a waste of everybody's time.
So I'm probably gonna have to reload it and then play it differently, which is gonna be stupid. You know, for me, I'm gonna tell you a pet peeve of mine. All right, as you guys know, when I play these kind of RPGs, I make important decisions, right? Sometimes you have morality decisions to make, gameplay decisions to make on your build or your leveling or whatever you're gonna do, and 99% of the time, unless there's a very strong reason to not do this, I would always stick with what happens. I do not usually save Scum during these kind of games.
That's not true, but go on.
I want it to feel like an honest first-time playthrough is an honest first-time playthrough where my decisions stick and there's direct consequences and repercussions for my choices and actions during my honest first playthrough, right?
Okay, but unrelated to save scumming, how do you feel about being handheld for every single playthrough you do? Is that an honest first-time playthrough? And what about when you look things up in between streams? Is that an honest playthrough? And I mean, really, what even is an honest playthrough? What does that mean? And why are you the person who gets to determine what an honest playthrough even is? Whatever it is.
Did you know there are plenty of people going out there doing playthroughs of these kind of games? They don't do that. They literally, before every single major decision, they do a hard save. And then they'll actually do every option to see the different ones. And then they'll pick the best one and stay with that one. Talk about, going through life being a pussy.
Well, I don't know why you felt the need to bring up the people that do this, because it's not any concern to you and it has nothing to do with you at all. You just needed to put somebody down for your own personal benefit again. Honestly, quite disgusting. Also, this can be quite a service to the audience that they have, because if they don't intend on doing a second or third playthrough, but they want their audience to see all of the choices, then they can show all of the choices and then just go with whichever one that they actually wanted. And besides, they can show off all of the options and then still decide to pick the actual choice that they went with originally to stick with their consequences. Some people, DSP, actually enjoy video games and are actually curious about what content is in the video game that they might be missing. And if you only intend on doing one playthrough, you might want to do one playthrough where you get to see all of the content that you wanted to see. Also, how ironic is it that DSP, of all people, would talk about other people going through their life as a pussy, but when he was confronted in the parking lot by Jaha for all the shit that he talked online, he cowered, cried, and blamed his alcoholism. And now as a 41-year-old grown man, he leaves the house once a week and talks to 3 people in his life, that being his wife/roommate, his mom, and his dad. And he doesn't even like his mom or his dad. This guy's a clown.
I'm sorry, but that's a pet peeve of mine. If you're someone who's playing for yourself and you want to do that, I mean, that's fine. But imagine if you're doing a playthrough for a live audience or an audience on YouTube on demand, right? And you cannot commit to any choices you make. You have to actually always pick the optimal outcome for every choice. Like, what the fuck kind of going through a game is that? Like, that drives me bonkers.
Again, but what if it's not about dodging consequences and getting the most optimal decision? What if it's about seeing as much content as humanly possible for both you and your audience because you genuinely enjoy games and have that curiosity? I know that's hard for Phil to fathom because he doesn't enjoy games and doesn't have any curiosity about their plots or stories or anything like that. He's not interested to see any content that doesn't directly get him closer to finishing the game so that he can quit playing it. But other people do, and that is why they make better content than you.
I remember even back in the day when I was playing Fallout 3 in New Vegas, I said to the audience, listen, when I make a decision, it sticks. That's the whole point, is that you have to live with the repercussions of your choices. And it makes the playthrough more interesting. It really does. And that really drives me nuts that there's people out there that will abuse the game system and just get around everything, But why does it bother you? Because it has no effect on you. You don't watch these people. You don't talk to these people. You yourself are not affected by this at all. I don't even know how this can be a pet peeve of yours. And he wants to sit here and say, oh, you should just live with the consequences of your actions. But DSP, when you spend all of your money and don't have any to pay for bills, what do? You don't just live with the consequences of your actions. You get on stream and beg. That's the mechanic that you abuse in real life, is you beg. And I think that's so much worse than save scumming in a video game. So for me, I don't like reloading. I don't, unless I have to. Like, let's say I'm completely out of lockpicks, and there's only one, I have to go through and lock the door, and it's really tough to lockpick. Then I'll save Scum to get through there so we can continue on with the playthrough or whatever.
And it's crazy to me that you would bring up the lockpick situation, because that is not how the lockpick situation worked out in Oblivion. You save Scum for every single lock in Oblivion because you refused to learn how the mechanic worked. The entire game you saved Scum for lockpicks, and they were optional lockpicks most of the time. These were not main story required lockpicks. These were optional dungeon lockpicks that you decided to save Scum every single time. At the end of your Oblivion playthrough, you had 400 to 500 manual saves. And oh my god, how could I forget about all of the save states you used during all of those classic games? The king of retro constantly using save states because he's terrible at retro video games. You want to talk about abusing game mechanics? How about using a game mechanic that didn't even exist when the game came out? It kills me how much this guy can just lie straight to your face. Like, you have no idea what he has said and done in the past. You've just forgotten all of it.
But when it comes to a game like this, I don't like having to reload story segments and redo them because something didn't go my way. I wish there was a way to get out of the situation that I'm in right now, but it certainly does not seem like that, right? So, I guess when we play again on Wednesday night, we're going to probably have to reload. What else can I say? We're going to have to. I don't know what else to do. I hate that, but it is a pet peeve of mine, and I wish that they designed the game better. But it looks like we have to reload to go back before this chaos ensued. And essentially, now that I know that this thing that's out to hunt me literally cannot be killed, what's the point in even fighting it?
There isn't one. There was never a point in fighting him. You should have just ran from the start.
Right? Instead, I'm just going to have to run. I'm just going to have to book it. And that way, hopefully, I won't, have no collateral damage and just get out of there. And hopefully then, it'll just continue on with the main storyline or whatever, and there won't be any issue. Right? That's all I could think of to do to fix the situation. I don't know what else I should be doing. So, all right, anyway.
Yeah, thank God. Anyway, you'd think after 15 years of playing video games online that you'd be a little better at video games and understanding how they work. But that seems to just not be the case for DSP. But he's been a liar his entire life, and he's not very good at that either. So I guess we shouldn't be surprised that he hasn't gotten any better at video games. Of course, another big ups to Snort Hogan. Always appreciate the uploads, brother. And a shout out to all of you guys for watching this video. I appreciate that as well. And I'm looking forward to those comments. Hopefully I'll catch you in the next one, but until then, make sure you check out other Detractor channels and dive deeper into that Snortex.